vítám vás na třetím díle Forbes Misfits Talks, které se konají tady, podle mě v nejlepším prostoru, který je v Karlových Varech, v JNT Magnus Lounge, čímž to pádem děkujeme JNT bance za to, že je taková, jaká je a že dělá každý rok tady ten fantastický prostor. Zároveň mi dovolte poděkovat našemu partnerovi Štoku, respektive Johnny Walkerovi, za to, že se stará o naši hydrataci. Takže kdokoliv z vás by měl během našeho povídání žízeň, může jít k tady tomu skvostnému mobilnímu pojízdnému baru a poprosit toho skvostného pána o koktejl. Já musím říct, že už tady třetí den piju Johnny Walker s passion fruitem, myslím, a je to moc prima. Takže vřele doporučuju. A malá možná informace na začátek, proč to děláme. My jsme letos vymysleli celý nový koncept Forbes eventu. Děláme Forbes Misfit Night, je to ve čtvrtek, koná se to v Císařských lázních, čím vás všechny, kteří jste tu, pár přísedících srdečně zvu na náš event. No a abychom propojili náš event s podcastem, tak jsme i tento podcast nazvali Forbes Misfits Talks. Ta idea je jednoduchá, chtěli jsme nějakým způsobem uctít památku Jiřího Bartošky a nechtěli jsme nikde vylepovat jeho černobílé fotografie a u nich plakat. Tak jsme vzali téma misfitství, jisté rebélie a postavili jsme na tom celý koncept. Tak, to je jenom na úvod a let me switch to English because our third guest is from Great Britain and I have the great pleasure to welcome here His Excellency British Ambassador Matt Field. Please come here on stage. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I was going to say you brought a British weather with you, but it changed suddenly, so
yeah, sorry about that.
I think we're good. I think we're good. Since this is Misfit Talk, my first question is there a space to be a misfit within your profession?
Yeah, well, thank you for the invitation. I must admit, when I received Battlefield Misfit invitation, I wondered what exactly you were after, whether you consider me a misfit. But actually, when I look at some of the people you've been talking to, I think it's a really interesting way of approaching it. If anything, maybe misfit and diplomat might seem to be opposites. But actually, I think there's lots of space for doing things differently within diplomacy or within international relations or within politics as well. So I think there's lots of room to be a misfit there as well.
Could you give us a little example for so we can imagine what in what way can you be a... Because you've entered the Czech ecosystem in a sort of misfit way. You have this. You had this campaign, Centru. It's been a huge success. I think everyone has seen it. So maybe that was the first sparkle of being a little different, no?
Yeah. So I mean, the first thing to say is that kind of campaign, that kind of message, only works if people are ready to receive you. So it's the welcome that I've received in the Czech Republic that I think makes any of that, the Centru kind of idea, only functions if the Czechs are receptive. And the Czechs have been receptive. They've been very warm. That's not just because of me. That's, I think, the relationship between the UK and the Czech Republic over a long period of time. What I did try to do a bit differently maybe with this one was communicate right from the very first day something clear and interesting. And I have a fantastic team in the embassy, some brilliant, especially Czech colleagues, and it was one of them that came up with this phrase, Centru. And of course, what's great about that is it's the nové bit.
It's the ending that works.
Not noví, it's not Centru, which is fine, but like Centru is just communicating something a little more interesting and maybe a little more familiar from the first day. That's what we did that was different.
I think that would be a completely different story if you would have used the Centru.
Yeah, which is interesting. It's two letters difference.
Exactly, but a huge difference in terms of how you perceive it.
I think so. I think so. And that's what we tried to do that was a little bit different. Again, it's a team effort. It's always a team effort, but that's what we want to do from the first day.
Please tell me, is diplomacy something you've been dreaming of since you were a little kid? Is it something a kid dreams of?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I feel incredibly lucky to be doing what I'm doing. So I get to represent my country in an amazing place. I've done it in other countries around the world. That's an enormous privilege. But I was not one of those kids at like 6, 7 years old, dressing up as a diplomat, going to school. I had no clear idea, even when I graduated from high school, that I wanted to do this, even graduating from university. So sometimes when I'm talking to high school students or university students, I'm looking for the ones in the audience who don't know what they want to do yet, because I was that kid, that student. what I did know that I enjoyed was working in different countries, working across different cultures. I enjoyed living in different places, getting to know them, and that's really the amazing thing. So eventually I found my way back through living in lots of different places, in Kenya, in Japan, in Sweden, and then coming back round to this point and realizing, hang on, I can do this for a living if I become a diplomat. So I kind of came a long way around to it. I didn't have a plan, but I'm very happy with where I came to.
And could you shortly just draw the way to the diplomacy? Because how does one become diplomat?
It's a great question. So no one in my family had done it before. I had no idea that. I assumed you had to be sort of a member of a noble family or something, or born into this.
I thought so.
That's what it feels like, yeah? So, but actually, in the UK, certainly, you can just apply to become a public official. I'm not a political appointee. I'm not a member of a political party. The government changes, but I continue. And really, I think what they were looking for were people who were curious about the world. Yeah. So the number one thing I think you need to do my job well, to do many jobs well actually, probably to do your job well, is to be curious and interested in people and what's happening in the world and getting to understand it. So when I did literally the tests to enter our service, yes, there were some people skills, yes, some kind of general knowledge, but mostly it was about curiosity and being able to work well with people from different cultures.
Well, that's one perspective I have, because I had my dreams as well of being a diplomat, but then I gave up because I thought exactly the same thing. You have to be sort of connected, you have the right network, and if you don't have it, the door's closed.
Yeah, I think it's an understandable. I think many of us have felt the same way, but it's an amazing opportunity, and I think in lots of countries now, hopefully that's changed. I think hopefully now you see people coming in who have a much more interesting, different background in lots of different countries around the world. It's not the same everywhere, but I know in the UK and certainly in the Czech Republic, they need people from different backgrounds, not just from diplomatic families.
How did you, by the way, end up in the Czech Republic?
So I was very lucky. So the way that it works during my career, I've worked in different places. I've worked in Croatia, in Skopje. I have worked in Brazil. I've done a few different jobs in London, a couple of jobs in Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. And we were sitting down. So my wife Martina and I were sat down, and we were kind of thinking about what we wanted to do next. And the way it works in our system is you get kind of a list of all of the different jobs that are coming up that you might be eligible for in all of these different countries around the world. And then you have this amazing conversation of, well, what do you think about Fiji? Or what do you think about Colombia? Or what do you think about Norway? And you're looking at these incredibly different places, different jobs around the world. And then you choose the ones that you want to go for. And we chose, Czech Republic. We chose Prague. And then I had to apply, I had to do interviews, I had to go through a whole process, and it was a competition, basically, competition. And of course, Prague is very popular. So there were a lot of other people.
In the diplomatic circles.
It's a great place to live, it's a great country, interesting work, good people to deal with. So it's popular, but luckily I got the job.
I mean, Fiji sounds good as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, Fiji sounds nice, but there's the great thing I think in our line of work is there's always someone who wants to go to Fiji, and there's someone who wants to go to Syria, or someone who wants to go to Lesotho, someone who wants to go to Argentina, and many people want different things from different places. So it's not always that the easiest places to live are the most popular ones, because sometimes the work is even more interesting in a more difficult place.
How would you describe your imagination of being a diplomat before you actually was one, with the actual experience?
Yeah. So can I be totally honest with you? I don't think I had any idea what I was getting into. I had maybe a kind of general sense that you'd be doing something to do with politics or international relations. But I remember walking through, so the Foreign Office in the UK is this very impressive building. And I remember walking through the front door on my first day. I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I really didn't know. I had a kind of very vague idea, but actually, what do you do all day? And sometimes it's a question that people ask me, say as an ambassador, what do you do all day? Like I kind of have an idea of what ambassadors do, but what do you actually do all day? And you know, the thing that I love about my job is every day is different. So every day is something else. Like yesterday, here in Karlovy Vary, I opened a Marks and Spencer store. That was the first thing that we did that day.
Oh, really?
I was recording kind of a promotional video for them in like a Wes Anderson style around Karlovy Vary. Later in the day, I'm meeting with businesses, investors into the UK or British companies that are here. I'm having a look at this beautiful Aston Martin that we have downstairs in this building. The job is just connecting people, doing lots of different things, supporting British businesses, supporting British people, helping our countries get closer. And genuinely every day is different. That's what I love.
And where's the catch?
No, absolutely.
Where's the downside?
Well, so that's all of the kind of easy, good stuff. But, you know, there's a lot of hard work that goes with that as well. So, you know, I've said different countries, the job is very different. And clearly this is a country where we have a great relationship. And so most of the time, what we're trying to do and what the Czech Republic is trying to do, it's all in the same direction. But, you know, that's also still hard. It also takes a lot of work. So helping a company to overcome the barriers to invest in one country or the other. We have, you know, many teams in the embassy. Some of them are doing the really difficult work as well. British visitors, sorry to say it, sometimes they get in trouble. This maybe won't be a surprise to too many Czechs, but you know, a small number of British visitors come through and they get themselves into difficulties, and we have to deal with that as well. So there's that side also.
I think I know from Prague.
Yeah. I think you've probably seen them around town.
Yeah.
But sometimes the difficult thing is just maintaining that effort and that energy over time. But one of the things that makes my job easy, to be honest, the thing that's best about my job is the team that I get to work with. And most of the people in the embassy are not actually British diplomats, they're Czechs. They're the ones doing most of the work, and I'm very lucky there.
Why do you think Czechs and the Brits had such a good relationship?
I don't know. So I have thought about this a lot, and I've asked a lot of people. But the thing that I keep coming back to, and it might seem a little strange, but I think it might be true, is the sense of humor. So Brits and Czechs have the same sense of humor, and that seems like a small thing, but actually, when you have the same kind of appreciation of things, about what's funny, what's not funny, I think actually it makes everything else easier. So, and it's not true for everyone. You know, British humor and German humor doesn't totally work together all the time.
German
what you say. So you have a head start. So if I sit down with a British person and we watch Pelishki, say, the film, and you know, it can be translated, you know, in subtitles at the bottom of the screen, we'll both be laughing at the same things. Last night in the film festival here, I watched a brilliant British documentary called Zodiac Killer Project, which doesn't sound very funny, but actually it's a funny film, and the Czechs and the Brits in the audience were laughing at the same things, and that helps. I think that's a head start.
Probably, yeah. Who's funnier, actually?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to say. I'll tell you what I've said to a couple of people. I think Monty Python could have been Czech. I think Yara Timmerman could have been British. I think there's almost exactly the same kind of appreciation across both. So, and officially, actually, this was last week. I think the Czech Republic was officially the funniest country in the world, according to the report that came out. And a lot of Czechs disagreed with that.
I actually think Ministry of Silly Walk could work in the Czech Republic. I think you would accept it.
Well, it's very popular here. So it's celebrated every day, once a day, every year.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think that tells you something.
Absolutely. When I ask you about the imagination of being a diplomat and the actual experience, the same question for living and doing business in the Czech Republic, because maybe you had some prejudice, or you thought this country being somewhat, I don't know, and then you actually experience it. You experience it every day. What was your idea of Czech Republic before you started this job?
I think, again, it's a good question. So I think you have an impression of what a place is like, but until you live there, you don't really know it. Yeah. So however much you might think you have an idea from, maybe you have friends, and I've worked with Czech people all over the world. Every posting I've done as a diplomat, I've always had a good relationship with my Czech colleagues. You know, we know Czechs from, you know, your tennis players, your footballers, your musicians, your filmmakers. You know, so we feel as though we know each other quite well. But actually, then when you come and live in a place, I think it's a bit different. Not in a negative way, but then you just have the actual proper experience of what it's like to be in that country. I think the things that have surprised me, I think the country sounds kind of obvious, but the country is much more than just the capital city. It's much more than Prague. This incredible outdoor space, this variety, places like Karlovy Vary.
There's Brno.
Brno as well, yes. You have to remind people from Prague sometimes. But the variety of what you have in this country in a relatively small space is amazing. And I don't think many people know that until they come here. I think that's one thing that can be a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you miss the UK, actually?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're very lucky. We're so well connected here. There's 12 flights a day between the UK and Czech Republic, so there's no lack of connection, physical connection. And we have plenty of friends and family come and visit. Of course, everyone wants to come and see the Czech Republic themselves. But when you're living in a different country, in a different place, I think you just you become more fond, maybe, and more appreciate your home place as well. So the more time I spend away, the more I appreciate the UK when I go back, and the more I think about it. It's not really particular physical things, material things that I miss. It's more people. It's more family, especially, and friends. But it's part of the appreciation actually increases the more time you spend away.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the humor actually connects us. I mean Czechs and Brits. Where do we differ in your experience? What would you mention?
No. Again, I think it's I think it's good. I think it's a good question, but it's a good question also to ask Czechs as well, because I think it's hard sometimes for us to see each other in quite the same way. So it's good to ask a Brit what they think about Czechs. It's good to ask a Czech what they think about Brits. I think most of the time we have quite a similar approach. Sometimes it's interesting when I look at Brits and Czechs working together every day in the embassy as we do. I think sometimes the Brits can be a little bit indirect. It can be confusing. If a British person says to you, "quite good," it usually means it's terrible.
Yeah.
There is just an indirectness about British people, I think, as well, that sometimes, and I understand completely, can be a bit misleading. That's the kind of stuff where you see a bit more of the difference, probably.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of, I don't know, some comments, some habits, the 5 o'clock tea, and just little things. So
I'm always such a disappointment to people. So I don't drink tea at 5 o'clock. I don't drink much tea at all, actually. I drink much more coffee. We do have beer in common, of course. Czechs and Brits.
That's right.
That's one thing, and every time is a good time for that. So I don't think that's something that really differs between us. But I think the only issue is sometimes it's a little I disappoint people's stereotypes.
Oh yeah.
So they were hoping to get something quite particular, and if they see the British ambassador, I don't know, out in the street in a T-shirt, that might be a little bit disappointing for them because they want to have a particular image of what the ambassador looks like. But by and large, I think people are pretty understanding that you're a human being, not just a job.
Not the 3-piece suite.
Yes,
with
exactly.
tea at 5 o'clock.
Yes, exactly. So, and sometimes you can play with the stereotype a bit, but by and large, I think it's better to get away from them.
If you should recommend something in Prague to a British Prime Minister, what would it be?
Oof. Like somewhere to visit. Again, the first thing, and this is no reflection on Prague, but the first question I would ask is, does it have to be in Prague? Because actually, it's so much the focus is always for people coming through Prague. One of the first questions I always ask people is there a way we can get you out of Prague, just for a bit at least? That's no disrespect to Prague. There's a lot of amazing things there. But I think if you only visit the capital city, you miss out on a huge amount. So, can you bring them to an amazing international film festival, or can you explore some of the countryside, those things? In terms of things to do in Prague itself, I mean, I love the spaces in Prague, Petržin and Stromovka, and just within the city, you have this kind of these green areas that allow you to really enjoy the space. Of course, you have this fantastic history, but it's also that combination of different things. And then I would probably take them to, you know, and there are many amazing theatre productions or other things that are going on, not just the classical, but the kind of more contemporary stuff as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's a brilliant group called Cirkla Putika, which is like a Czech modern circus. And it's Czech, but it's also super international and open as well. That's the kind of thing I would want to take them to.
Its principal was the first guest of the Misfit Talk. Like
really? Okay, right. Well, then you know exactly. I mean, and that's a great example of they're misfits, but they're also imagining things in a completely new way, and that I find really exciting.
Yeah,
really exciting.
And, the same question, but the other way around. Like, what would you recommend? Let's say besides London.
No. So and then I'll do the same thing again. So I'll say, don't just stay in London, please. Get out of London. Get out and explore some of the rest of the country as well. So you know, my hometown is Oxford. I would always recommend people to come to Oxford, which is it's a great city, but also you know it's where they filmed Harry Potter, and it's there's lots of other kind of more interesting contemporary things. Travel around the country. Get up to Scotland. The islands of the west coast of Scotland are some of the most beautiful places on the planet. Visit some of the really exciting, sort of fast-growing parts of the country as well. Spend time somewhere like Manchester. Go and see live music. All of those great things that are very kind of vibrant and alive in the UK today. Not just the history, but actually the present as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you catch up with all the things that are going on in the UK? Because you spend so much time here and maybe traveling as well. Do you think you are becoming a little bit less of a Brit every day?
Yeah, so I definitely feel a bit of that. But the job is... So when I started, 20 plus years ago as a diplomat, you had nowhere near the same kind of connection with back home. So just the simple technology. So, on your phone, you can have absolutely every piece of news that is happening in the UK. You can watch British TV shows. You can stay in contact with friends there. But it's not the same as living there. That's true. So I do feel a little bit of that distance. We feel this also, we're here as a family. So my wife Martina and I, we've got our 2 boys with us. They've spent a lot of time growing up outside of the UK. So sometimes I worry a little bit that they're not feeling as connected with the UK. But I think the other side of that is they gain this whole other kind of experience all around the world, from countries we've lived in, places like Brazil, places like Bosnia, places like Czech Republic. I think they benefit much more than they lose. That's what I hope. Mm-hmm.
So they usually, children like that, they do become these sort of international citizens.
I hope so. I mean, we had a very funny conversation with one of my kids, the younger one. So my wife is Croatian, so it was I think it was the European Championship, the football championships, and I sat him down, and he'd been born in Brasilia, so he'd never actually spent time in either England or Croatia living. So I sat down with him, and I said, you can support England with Daddy, or you can support Croatia with Mummy. It's totally fine, whichever you choose. And he said, I'm supporting Brazil. And I said, it's the European Championships. Brazil's not even playing. But he said, no, I was born in Brazil. I'm supporting Brazil. So he clearly still feels that connection. I don't think that means he's less British. I think that just means he has more going on as well.
Since this is a Forbes talk, how much of your work is actually connected to business, to connecting businesses, to do something like maybe even openings for British businesses and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a huge part of my job. I'd say it's anything from a third to half of my job.
Oh, really?
And the reason it's that much is because this is a mature relationship between our 2 countries. We don't need the kind of crisis management side of it. I mean, you have that there. You deal with the consular issues, British nationals. You deal with the military cooperation, political, all of those things. But actually, a lot of what London wants me to put my attention into is doing more together in business. So that can be helping British businesses here. So I mentioned Marks and Spencer. That's one. Aston Martin, Rolls-Royce, you know, these are iconic sort of British brands, and there's a lot more here. But there's also Czech investments into the UK. Czechs have recently bought Royal Mail. Czechs have purchased parts of our football clubs, which is always very important to us. So football, investors into energy, lots of things. So that kind of balance of trade in both directions, it's a really, really important part of my job.
There's actually one interesting little thing. When I was talking to Daniel Křetínský, who bought into the British Mail and West Ham United, so he mentioned that after some time the British did actually accept him, and he compared it to the French people, which is the language he speaks fluently. He's been there for a long time. He's done a lot of business there, but they still consider him a little bit of an outsider. Is this observation right? Are you accepting in this sense?
I hope so. I think we have good days and bad days. I can't say it's always an easy experience for people becoming British, but one of the things that we have that I think really helps is the UK generally, and London in particular, is a global city. So it's a city that is made up to a large part of people who have first come from somewhere else. And that's one of the things that I love about it, the energy and the difference that you have there. So I think when you come into a place where other people have also made their homes, then you get the benefit of that hopeful openness. I can't say it's always perfect, because I know it's not always perfect, but I think that's a good example of what you hope to see, that we are open to the world and open for business and open for people to come and spend time with us, open for people to come and study, and many people still come and study in the UK, open to enjoy visiting us and hopefully coming and doing business as well.
Absolutely. Maybe one last thing. What's your relationship towards this festival? It's your first time here, or you do come? Yeah,
so we've actually been here a couple of times already, so it's my third time already coming here. So the thing that we got right, it was a very clear message early on. So people said, look, it's an amazing film festival, but it's not just a film festival. So the thing that I enjoy so much about being here is it's an international moment that brings together a lot of interesting people from across the country and far beyond that as well, a lot of Brits. But it is also a film festival, and I'm always determined when I come here, we will see some films as well. I love films, I'm a complete film nerd, and the idea of coming to a film festival with this many amazing films and not seeing things was very frustrating. So the days have been very full but very long, but I've seen 3 films already during the festival, and it's been a brilliant experience.
Well, good for you. I've been coming for years, but unfortunately I've never seen a film.
No, but you're not the only one. But it's also because you're working, it's work as well. But it just would kind of break my heart a little bit, I think, to come to a festival like this and not be able to see at least a couple of films.
One last question.
Yeah, please.
This is a Czech Forbes. Do you think there is a better beer than Pilsner Urquell?
So I'll tell you one of the things I love about this country. So whatever event I do, pretty much, there's a beer question. Yeah. So there's pretty much always a beer question, which is great for me. I was doing sort of university visits and high schools and things. There's always a beer question. I was visiting an elementary school recently. I thought, well, at least that's one place that I won't get a beer question. 8-year-old, first question, which is your favorite beer? So it's very important here. I know this is a serious question. I enjoy Pilsner, Urquell. I'm trying lots of other Czech beers as I travel around. But there's still a bit of me that if I have to choose, I'd be sat down, say, with my dad, and we'd have an English kind of ale. That would be the starting point, I think, for me. But the great thing is you don't have to choose only one beer. So I can enjoy the Pilsner, I can enjoy the English ales as well, and everything in between.
That was the most diplomatic.
It was good. Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
It was very good.
That was diplomatic.
It was very good.
That was diplomatic. Maybe not quite the misfit side, but actually, I mean, one thing is, this is part of Czech soft power around the world. I mean, there is literally a beer that you can find almost anywhere in the world that will have its roots in Pilsner and in this country.
There was one thing I forgot to ask, and I wanted to ask: how powerful actually is a soft power in your perspective? And it can be beer, it can be culture, movies, stuff like that.
I'm really glad you asked that, actually. So, soft power kind of sounds, well, it sounds soft, doesn't it? It doesn't sound particularly impressive or important. Actually, it's some of the most important stuff that we do. The UK historically has had quite strong soft power because of the language, because of our kind of TV, movies, music, all of these different things. But actually the Czech Republic, I think, has some really interesting and growing strong soft power, including the beer, including your tennis players who keep winning Wimbledon, including the literature and the music and all of these things as well. But soft power isn't just nice to have, it actually is an economic driver as well. We've started to use this idea, which I think is really important, of the creative industries. That art isn't just art for its own sake, but it is also an industry. So we have a perfect example here in the film festival. Amazing films from around the world, but it's an economic driver as well. The film industry creates jobs, creates influence, creates opportunity. It's huge. And not just that, film industry. I was in Kutná Hora recently, which is a lovely kind of pretty place, but it's also the home of one of the most successful video games in the world, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And the global game industry is bigger than the global movie industry. And these are all creating brilliant jobs, opportunities for the future as well. So I think that shift from like, culture is nice, to these are creative industries that create opportunities and jobs, I think is a really important shift.
Interesting take. You're absolutely right. One really last question.
No, please.
Imagine yourself looking at the map after the Czech term.
Yeah.
And, what country would it be? Like if you could have choose any country.
Oh, it's such a difficult one. Such a difficult one. I'll give you the reality and then I'll give you a better answer, a less diplomatic answer. So the reality is I have to go back to London next. So I've been away for a while. I need to kind of get back in.
London is
the reasons
calling.
You said, London is calling. And I have to get back and just get used to that sort of UK end of things so I can represent the country properly. When we look at the map, I mean, it's almost impossible to choose one place. But I did start my career having lived in Japan and studied Japanese, and I just haven't made it back yet. So I would love to get back to Japan at some point. I think that would be top of the list, but it's a long list.
So good luck with that. Good luck with everything, and thank you for a great conversation. His Excellency Matt Field.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was great.